Well, we are heading towards the budget. It's going to be a very different budget. Initially, it was, of course, going to be all about being back in the black, the tagline from the government about getting back into surplus. Now that's not so assured because of the bushfire crisis, and there has been plenty of push after last year's sluggish economic growth for some more stimulus. The government now possibly more open to that, given the surplus is in question now. Joining me for more on this is Toth, Chief Economist at the Australian Industry Group. Thanks very much for your time. Let's just start on the surplus, I guess. The focus clearly from the government is away from this. Do you welcome what is the government new focus, I suppose you'd call it, on saying, well, let's worry about the economy, particularly in the wake of the bushfires?
Good morning. I think you're right. The budget surplus was always projected to be fairly thin this year, and even going into next year fairly small, which wasn't leaving much of a buffer for emergencies just like this one. We know that expenditure will be higher, and we also know that revenues will be affected by the disruptions and the cessation of some economic activity as a result.
Nonetheless, the government has been talking about paying down debt. So this is not just this financial year, but future financial years as well. Do you expect there'll still be quite a few limitations on spending? It's going to be tough to get any idea up that does involve the bottom line?
I think that's right, but the focus does need to be on helping communities and businesses rebuild and rebuild fairly quickly after disasters such as this one. Prolonging the spending that's going to be required, that we know is required for bushfire recovery, for economic recovery in regional areas, is going to add to the burden that we see for those communities, not just now but going into the future. We also know that business investment has been weak for quite some time, that we have needed to see some stimulus in that area. So putting those two things together, it makes sense to bring forward some of the measures that we think are required anyway for business investment, and to use them for both of those purposes, so that it helps with the recovery purpose and helps with the long-term rebuilding that we need to see in business investment and productivity growth across the board.
So your colleague Ines Wilkes is writing today in The Australian of a generous business investment allowance here, and specifically talking about being able to write equipment or whatever it might be, a new investment off much quicker. What is generous in terms of what that would mean for a business and for the budget bottom line as well?
So what we're thinking there is the generosity needs to come in two forms. Firstly, in the size and types of businesses that are eligible. In the past, we've seen business investment tax breaks for small business or for businesses in some sectors. We think that needs to be broadened to include all businesses that can benefit from such a measure. It also needs to be generous in terms of the timing of the investments that businesses are able to claim. So we think more of it needs to be claimable in the current year, rather than being spread across future years, as is currently the case with most business investment tax breaks.
And that presumably comes certainly at a short-term cost. I know that Ines has been writing saying, well, if you think about it, you bring it forward, meaning future budget years actually look better because they're not writing it off then. But do you have a figure on the initial budget cost?
No, we don't. But what we're really saying is this is all about the timing of measures that are in place anyway. Businesses can already claim deductions for the investments that they make, but it's generally across quite a long time horizon. So what we're recommending is help provide the boost that we need to see in rebuilding and reconstruction and in productivity growth, but we need to bring that boost forward. So we do need to see more of it in the current year immediately, rather than stretching it out over 5 and 10 year periods. So the net cost to the budget is all about the timing. It's about bringing forward some of those costs. So yes, it will affect the budget bottom line in the current year and next year, but further out we'll see the benefits of that in terms of increased revenue, increased productivity growth, and of course fewer deductions being made in the long term. So it's a timing question.
Well, right, yeah, okay. Well, the case is being made, so the government's budget not too far away. We'll find out then. I just wanted to ask you, finally, the other thing the government is wrestling with, of course, is about climate action and people talking about whether or not, there's more of a hunger to take more action. In your view, what's the best way, what's the best path for the government to take if it decides to ramp up its efforts at all?
On the climate questions, we think that there needs to be stronger acknowledgement of what's going on at the moment, and certainly when we look at the business investments, the types of investments that businesses might want to make, some of those will involve climate mitigation, for example, investments that will help bring down their energy costs, that will help them use water more efficiently, use energy more efficiently, and use the resources that we do have in a more efficient manner, and a manner that is less impactful on our environment. So these things can be included in measures like the business investment promotion. We also need to see better certainty with regard to the energy market and energy policies. That is a crucial area of climate-related policy that we do need to see.
All right, something again, it's been spoken of for a few years. Julie Toth, we do appreciate your time today. Thank you.